Hello and welcome to For Fox's Sake. This is the preview with Rob Hayes, and I'm joined this evening by Jono, Towers and Joe Ledge. For those of you watching along, we'll see that the headline underneath Joe's name describes him, self-described Ledge. For those of you listening, you'll have to make up your own minds over the next half an hour or so. We are here to preview Leicester City's trip to Oxford on Saturday lunchtime. And those of you watching along live on Facebook, YouTube, or X, we would welcome your thoughts and comments as we go through the next half an hour or so. So please do drop in your comments. We'll get through as many of those as possible, provided they are relevant and clean. Those are my only two stipulations, really. If they're not relevant or clean, we're not going to go through them. We will start how I start the preview every time we do it, by getting a general sense of the mood in the room and deciding, are we feeling optimistic about things at Leicester at the minute, with kind of specifically looking at Saturday, or are we feeling pessimistic? Don't go into too much detail just yet, but that's what the next half an hour is for. Jono, we'll start with you. Optimistic today or pessimistic or somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, very much optimistic, I would say. Yeah. I mean,
excellent.
Looking forward to the weekend, definitely.
Joe?
Yeah, optimistic. Thank God the international break's over and we got the proper football back.
Hallelujah. Yeah, definitely.
Proper championship football. So there'll be just under 1,500 travelling fans heading down to the Kassam Stadium Saturday lunchtime. 12,500 seater stadium. And it's only the fifth game of the championship season. Why we have to stop for an international break after just 4 games of the league season, who on earth knows? For those of you new to the preview, the format essentially is we do quite a bit about Leicester. We try and save most of the newsy stuff for the big show with Pete Selby and guests. But anything that's reasonably relevant to the upcoming game, we will go through. Then we'll have a look at how the three of us today on the podcast would like to see Leicester line up on Saturday. If we've got a little bit of time somewhere near the end, we'll have a quick look at Oxford to make it worthwhile me doing my notes and Joe listening to Oxford podcasts. And then we usually like to finish off with score predictions. So if you're watching along live and you've got anything to add or challenge us on, please do get in touch. So we'll start. Now we're all feeling nice and optimistic. I'm optimistic as well, by the way, just in case anybody was interested. And I'll tell you why I'm feeling optimistic, because the start to the season hasn't been absolutely mind-blowing. We've not pulled up any huge trees in the first few games. But I'm optimistic because I like the manager. And this evening, we're live at the moment on Thursday evening, if you're listening back. Marty Cifuentes has just done an hour special on the When You're Smiling podcast with BBC Radio Leicester. And I don't think you get many Leicester managers in a room like that for an hour, especially not live, and especially not coming out of the hour looking like reflecting so well on yourself. So I'll just, for those of you that haven't seen it yet, I'll just pick through a couple of the key points that I pulled out. In terms of how the team are playing, he said that he's pleased that it looks like they are beginning to work harder for each other, and that is the foundation of it. And then he said the players' relationships will grow, and he described it as a flow on the pitch will come. He said he's not stuck on one idea. He has got his footballing philosophy, obviously, but he says his job is to create scenarios for the players to show their best qualities. So he's not necessarily stuck on it's my way or the highway. It's actually, well, this guy's a great footballer. Can I get him into positions where he can affect the game? And the last thing that I picked up on, and this was the biggest thing for me, because it seems like only a few weeks ago, and it probably was, Jono, to be honest, it feels like the season's been on for a lot longer than that. But Jono and I were talking about a disconnect between club and fans, players and fans. And Marty Cifuentes this evening said it's his responsibility and the players' responsibilities to get the fans on board. He said, number one, I struggle to see the fans being unhappy if the team's winning every week. But he said, I also want to ask the fans, because he kind of got pushed on, well, what if the players are doing well, but the fans are still a bit about the club and the ownership and stuff. And he said, I want to ask the fans to look at what the players are doing. And if they like what the players are doing, that's a reflection of what is being done behind the scenes. So I was saying to Jono just before we went live, I feel like Cifuentes, for me personally, is the most all-round likable manager in terms of what I've seen on the pitch so far, how he speaks, what he's trying to do. I think he's my favourite all-round manager so far. I know it's early days, since Nigel Pearson. Jono, what are your reflections on Cifuentes so far and what you heard tonight?
Yeah, likewise, I managed to catch about half of the stuff on Radio Leicester this evening, and it reflected a lot. I reflected a lot on what he was saying compared with what he was saying before, and I think he speaks really well. He communicates really well, and I think from that point of view, I really like him as a manager. He puts across his points and his ideas really well. And he's honest. I think there's no rubbish coming out of his mouth. I think he speaks the language of the fans. He understands a lot of the frustrations that we've seen. He understands the need to create a culture. I think that's something else I took away from what he was saying: resetting and creating a new culture about how they want to work, how they want to operate as a squad. And I think that was all. That was what was missing before. It's having a strong identity in the dressing room and everyone pulling in the same direction. And I think that's by and large what I was taking away from what he was saying. Also, yeah, I took away what you were talking about is about playing players to their strengths, which again I don't think we have seen under recent management. Regardless of the results we were getting, talking specifically about Enzo being so driven to a single style of play, I think it's refreshing to hear a manager say, look, we've got a bunch of players with attributes and we need to play them to get the best out of them. I think that seems like, nonsensical really in terms of football management. So I think a lot of, from what I was hearing is common sense stuff that I think fans would like to hear. And he communicates really well. So all of the things that you were saying, really, I echo the same sentiment, really. So far, so good. And he seems to be implementing what he's saying. And I think that's another thing, is it's all well and good saying the right things. Because I think some fans were saying the same thing about Cooper back in the day, that he was saying the right things. However, we weren't seeing it being delivered under Cooper. So far, so good. I think, we're seeing evidence of week on week progression on the pitch, and I'm hoping to see the same thing on Saturday. Another example of us moving forwards together as a squad and seeing another level week on week until we get to a point where we are playing good football, which is what he said he wanted to do, and winning games, which I think we've got every chance of doing at this level. So yeah, all in, I thought it was a really positive interview from what I heard.
Absolutely. Just before we come to you, Joe, we've got Oddfish, who said Marty is like a breath of fresh air. Will improve week by week. Yeah. Love the new loans. Similar kind of thing to what you were saying there, Jono. Joe, your thoughts on Cifuentes so far?
Rob, a slightly personal question. Do you fall in love easy? Are you like an old romantic? Because it's only been 4 weeks.
I know it has, but my issue was...
You're already giddy.
I know, but I was thinking about all of the managers that we've had in the last few years, and there's always been just one thing that I wasn't necessarily fully sold on. And granted, Cifuentes has had 5 competitive games to do that, and it's not necessarily all about what's on the pitch, but it's what Jono was saying. He talks a good game, but you can see what's happening on the pitch, and I think he so far seems to be the kind of manager that can knit the various elements of the club back together.
Well, I think I'm going to have to agree with you, really. I mean, the reason I joke about that is because as far as in the last however many years, all managers talk a good game. they're slightly like politicians. You know, they wouldn't get the job if they weren't good at saying, yeah, we'll get this going, we'll get this happening, and the team will be winning lots of games. It will be great. But what we have seen, most importantly for me, is there does seem to be a slight culture change where he's got the team working bloody hard. We saw it against Birmingham. Everyone was in there. You know, that was a team all working for, you know, playing for the badge and all working hard and making sure that they did, you know, to the best of their ability. We got some shocking midfielders and stuff like that, but guess what? They had a good game because everyone was on the same page, really. So I think that is actually the sort of best thing you can say about a manager is, like you say, they all talk a good game, really. But when you see it so quickly translated onto the pitch, that's when you start to, you know, feel optimistic. He seems like a nice guy as well, and he's got a good backstory. So there's nothing that you can't sort of get behind, really. Looking forward to what he does this weekend. Is he going to play all the new signings? Again, the new signings, in the end, it was a great transfer window, really. Great might be pushing it, all right. There were people that have been left behind. That's one thing that we're going to see with Marty. Is he, you know, that he has now got a few that are hanging around that were keen to go. How's he going to manage the squad list is out today? You know, they're all still in there. So we'll see how he manages those. But as I say, as we've said, I think it's translated onto the pitch and you're actually excited about watching Leicester again.
Yes, quite a strange situation to be in, having spent the entirety of last season absolutely dreading the game. Now, I was traveling in various parts of the world for most of last season, and every time that I managed to convince myself and my wife that we needed to watch a Leicester game, probably the regret maybe wasn't instant, but it was within the first 10-15 minutes of the game. Whereas now, when I'm making time to watch the games, I'm actually thinking, okay, I can see what this player is trying to do. I can see that this manager has actually got some ideas as to how we're going to win this game, and not just the same ideas. So you're absolutely right. The joy of watching Leicester, or at least the joy of thinking about watching Leicester, is certainly back. And I think the fact that nobody feels like this is anywhere near as good as they can be this season is a real promising sign. Now, there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that there will be little bits and bobs where we have ups and downs in the season. It's a 46-game season. It is a brutal one at that in the Championship. But a game like Saturday against a team that are newish to Championship life and have struggled at the start of this season, we've spoken, or we've heard from Cifuentes that he really would like to keep possession of the ball, because he said basically if you've got it, they haven't, and you're in control of the game. But we've seen in quite big chunks of various games so far this season, we've not been able to do that, and we've had to adapt. Surely what we're expecting to see on Saturday, Jono, is Leicester getting on the ball, dominating possession, and making it very clear that Oxford are potentially a Championship League One yo-yo club, and that we are essentially, whilst we are in the same division this season, we are essentially, should be, an entire division ahead of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting. I'm hoping that the new one or two of the new signings come in. Yeah, and that little bit of extra quality I think that we have brought in will be, you know, will help with regard to, you know, taking us up a level or two. Also, he's had 2 weeks, or best part of 10 days, hasn't he, on the training pitch with a lot of the players that haven't disappeared on international duty. So I'm expecting, as week by week to be looking better and better. And I think, you know, we can always say after 10 games, we can sort of get a good handle on where we might be as a team over the season. So, you know, another good win on Saturday, I think, is what I'm expecting and hoping for. And maybe it's arrogant to say I'm expecting it. I didn't like at the start of the season in some of the games as looking a little bit complacent on the pitch, and so I don't want to be complacent as a fan either. But at the same time, I think you're right. We should be a level above Oxford. Certainly, even now, looking at the league table, we are looking like we are already, even though we haven't performed particularly well. So, with a couple of the new faces coming in, I'm thinking particularly up front. Hopefully, we can bag a few goals and get a good victory here. I'm hoping for at least a 3-goal victory.
Oh, save your predictions for the end, Jono. Don't give it away just yet.
I didn't go full in there, but I'm giving you a hint where I'm thinking.
Joe, are you expecting an element of not necessarily complacent arrogance, but arrogance with the intent to back it up?
We need to get a cliche bell, actually, because I'm ready to roll out my first cliche of the season, which is the game's not played on paper. On paper, it seems like an easy win. I listened to their post-match podcast today. There was a real sense of they had a really good second half against Coventry. They dug in and they came back when all seemed lost. And there was a lot of talk about finding a way to win. They scored some good goals from set pieces. So I'm actually expecting, basically, they sounded a lot like us, when we, after Birmingham, they had a draw that felt like a win. We beat a team where we were thinking we made them look very ordinary. And I think most of us thought it might be a harder challenge than it was in the end. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a tough challenge, and many are predicting. I'll take an easy win all day long. But what we did against Birmingham was we dug in a bit. We made things hard for them. And that's exactly what Oxford are going to do to us. Yeah, I mean, if I'm honest, I think with the new signings, a new striker, with the quality that we've got, we should be putting a few past them. I don't think it's going to be like they were against Brighton. I don't think it's going to be like that at all, really. I do think it could be a tricky game. I can get another cliche in now. There's no easy games in the Championship, and I think it might be one of them, especially away. They'll be pumped up for it. They'll be up for it, and I think it'll be a bit of a battle, actually. I think we'll win, but I think it'll be a battle.
Let's have a look at the Leicester squad then. Pretty much every player available or near enough. Louis Page with a minor hamstring complaint after returning from international duty with England under 17s. Dick Overreed and Christiansen back in training, possibly available for the match day squad, but maybe it might be one of those where they leave him.
Starting lineup. Deckard Overreed is going to be ready. Yeah.
No, it might be ready. Might be ready. So,
fingers crossed. We'll all be on tenterhooks.
This is going to be a more interesting conversation than it has been on the preview recently, because basically we had no new signings to talk about. So the team virtually picked itself, and it was basically us debating which two centre-backs we wanted to play and who wouldn't look too terrible in the centre of Leicester's midfield, because the rest of the team has virtually, bar one or two little changes, picked itself so far. We've mentioned briefly the new signings: Julian Carranza coming in as a striker, Aaron Ramsey and Jordan James both midfielders, and Francisco Vietes, the goalkeeper. I guess the question is twofold, really. We'll come to you first, Joe. Do you want any of those new signings to play, or do you expect any of the new signings to play from the start? Because there is a bit of a difference in the question. Whether you want it and whether you expect it to happen are two different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think most fans would say, yeah, stick them all in from the start. But we all know that that's not going to happen, really. I think, was it Jordan James, Justin James, Jordan James. Yeah. That's his name, isn't it? Yeah, it's a combination of those. We've always got one player like that at Leicester, haven't we?
Let's just call him
But
JJ. It's fine.
we've just got to have we've always got to have a JJ. I'm not sure if he's going to start because he doesn't. I think he's been away with Wales. Weirdly, I think the one that's most likely to start is Ramsey, perhaps in the 10. But I think they'll all be. I would expect them all to be on the pitch by the end. I think he'll start with the team that won at Birmingham. That's what a prudent manager would probably do. He hasn't got much reason to change it. And you want to slowly introduce the new signings. But yeah, I did think perhaps Aaron Ramsey might start in the 10 to start off with, really, and or with, I suppose, who do you play then? You know, or maybe it's IU with Carranza, sorry, up front. Either of those two might start, but I'd expect. You always want your new signings to start, but it's quite rare that they all start, isn't it? Really, they'll all be 60 minutes or so, I should think.
I guess with the Page minor injury, it kind of opens the door really for. I was thinking exactly the same as you, Joe. I think it opens the door for Ramsey to come in and just drop in that number 10 and then have the other 3 signings on the bench ready to come on and have an impact at some point. Jono, do you agree with that? And is there any new signing in particular that you're desperate to see on Saturday?
Yeah, I want Carranza to start, frankly. You know, Daka's not cutting it. IU's not a number 9. We've just signed a number 9. Just whack him in. It's against Oxford. So, with all due respect to Oxford, we're not playing one of the promotion pushing teams. I shouldn't think. It should be a good start for him, frankly. It's albeit, we don't get, there's no easy games in the Championship, as you know, Joe. It's one of the easier games you would hope for him to get a good start and maybe bag a goal or 2. So get his confidence up. And so, yeah, I want to see him start, basically. And yeah, with Page being injured, there's an argument for Ramsey as well. I think the fact that JJ played for Wales probably means he's unlikely to start, I would say. Also, the fact that, Samari and Skipper absolutely flying. So why not carry them on in midfield?
You said that with a straight face about Samari.
Yeah, I was trying to keep a straight face there. So yeah, eventually I'm expecting all 3 of them to be in the starting lineup and making a big difference to us, to be honest.
I agree. I think that's going to be the case, but I think probably it's more likely to be Joe's suggestion at the weekend that that by and large the same team starts, and then those players can come in and get their first taste of action and maybe make a difference in the last 20 minutes if it's going to be one of those where it's kind of grinding it out. We'll spend the next couple of minutes looking at the opposition, Oxford. First interesting point is that they're managed by ex-Leicester player Gary Rowett, who's a stalwart of Championship management these days. They are 22nd in the league table, but they did pick up their first point, and it was a hard-fought one against Coventry just before the international break. Interestingly, last season, 11 of their 13 Championship wins came at home, so they'll be really desperate to recapture that home form because it essentially kept them in the league last season. They have only had 2 players score league goals this season. They've got 2 each. One of them's Will Lancashire on loan from Tottenham Hotspur. And one of them is Cameron Brannigan, who's got over 300 appearances for Oxford and is, as Joe mentioned earlier, a bit of a set-piece specialist. He scored a free kick and Lancashire scored as a result of another Brannigan free kick. So they're probably the 2 dangers. For those of you who are interested, and just to get my little stat pack out of the way, because, I've got to make it worth my while. Other notable players who you may have heard of at Oxford, there's not very many of them, unless you're an EFL super fan. Matt Phillips, ex-West Brom and Scotland winger. He's at Oxford, 34 years old. I was thinking earlier, that makes him an old man and an old footballer. And then I realised that I'm actually older than him. So... and also there's Will Volks, who's an ex-Wales international, Sheffield Wednesday, Cardiff kind of player. So there's not really anybody standing out there. In the last 2 games, they've played pretty much a 5-4-1. So they're going to want to try and get a result at home. Leicester are, I mean, I don't think it's too egotistical to say that we are a bit of a giant in the Championship to be shot at. So I think Oxford are going to be up for it. And the longer they can keep us out, the longer they're going to think maybe from a set piece or something that they could probably pinch something.
Yeah, another cliche. I think they'll probably park the bus and hit us on the brake, or try to. But yeah, I do think with the extra quality we've got, hopefully with the new signings making a difference, we should have enough. And I think once we go ahead, if we go ahead, then I think, you know, we'll go from there and bag a few more. But yeah, maybe it'll be a scrap for a little while. But I think as soon as we go ahead, maybe by a goal or 2, I think then it opens the door for us to get a few more.
Joe, we've hit a hat trick of cliches so far. You've got 4 minutes. Any more that you can squeeze in?
I think I'm going to disagree with Jono, really. That I think like I say, I've listened to another team's podcast today, so I feel a bit dirty, but they were just really pleased. They've done it against Coventry. Coventry were pretty in control for half an hour, 40 minutes, I suppose. And they came back. I think we're going to have to concentrate for the whole match, which we've seen Leicester teams do occasionally. But certainly towards the end of the match, that's my slight reservation about, you know, do you bring on the new signings and that sort of thing. Oxford are definitely they're going to play till the final whistle. I think that's what they're going to do, because they're going to know that they came back against Coventry. That's going to be in their mind, and they'll think they can do it again. So do you start swapping up and potentially, we don't know how any of our new signings can see out a game. So there is a side of me that thinks start with the new signings and then end up with Samari, Skip, Ayew, everyone else, just to see the game out, really. I do think they will, like I say, play to the final whistle. Is that a cliche? Yes, I got one more in, didn't I? So
play to the whistle. We love that one. Right, we are nearing the final whistle on this preview show as well, but it is prediction time now. If you are watching live, please feel free to send in your score predictions on the comments. I'll kick us off, and I think we are going to win the game. I think we are going to come under a bit of pressure late on when we're 2-1 up, and Carranza is going to come off the bench, score a debut goal to finish it off at 3-1. I'm going 3-1 Carranza to score the third. Jono, what do you reckon?
Not too dissimilar. I think we'll win 4-1, but I think Carranza will start. Well, I'm hoping he will. And I think that he will bag a couple and we'll go 3-0 up, and then we'll let a silly goal in and then get one at the end. So 4-1 for me. And I think I fancy Ayew to get one as well. I think he'll come on as a sub for Carranza and get another one, maybe the late one.
Joe, what are we thinking?
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1. It might turn into a bit of a crap game. I think they'll do their best to park the bus. It might be a bit like watching England this weekend, although, you know, against Serbia we're all right, but it might be a sort of England Andorra sort of a situation. But I'll go 2-1.
Oddfish, who's been watching along live with us this evening, is the founder of the Dallas Foxes. We're finding out in the comments here. Oddfish saying 2-0 to Leicester. The only person, the three of us were all expecting Leicester to concede a goal. Oddfish is going for a clean sheet, but says, don't bet on my guess, as I thought we'd thrash Wednesday. I think it's difficult to thrash teams in the Championship, but hopefully our predictions are correct, or at least one of them is, which means Leicester will pick up another 3 points. That is our half an hour up. Thank you very much to everybody that's joined us live on Facebook, X, or YouTube. Thank you if you are watching this back or listening back wherever you get your podcasts. If you don't already like and subscribe to all of our various social media outlets, then please make sure that you do, and then you won't miss another episode. The next episode of For Fox's Sake will very likely be the big show next week with Pete Selby. And he and various guests will go through Leicester's definite win against Oxford and talk probably more about the Cifuentes chat and more about the new signings as well. But for now, thank you very much for watching and listening, and we'll speak to you next time.